it's almost finding a balance between letting some of art be random, or let some of life be random, and then letting some parts of life be planned out. Did I put everybody to sleep? I feel like I just put everybody to sleep.
Are you done? Or okay.
You're cool. You're cool. You're cool. F you. F you. I'm out of here.
Did you have a response?
Cut that out.
No, that was great. That was perfect. And no, I'm not asleep.
Well, Shane and I were talking about this, I think, like 2 nights ago, but something I think about when I'm, like, creating a menu is, like, is it art to copy something? And, like, as a chef, you feel like you're creating your own identity and you have to do new things and you don't want to copy what else is going on. And, like, there comes a point where you're learning. I'm not classically trained, so I just had imposter syndrome for a very long time. And there came a point where I finally felt like I had begun to shape my own identity as a cook and a baker. And I don't have a defining moment for that, but it's like a feeling when you're creating and you have this sense of who you are as an artist. So it's like going back to what is an artist, it's like you see yourself, but then other people see you as that too.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
So the whole idea of stealing ideas from other artists. So I ran into that. So I started making stencils a lot. And I was told, oh, you're just copying Banksy and bullshit like that. But stenciling is actually the oldest technique found in cave paintings, where people blew pigment on their hands and created these stenciled handprints. So it's like Banksy copied Blek Lerat, and Blek Lerat copied the cavemen, and then whatever. You know, it's like, but anyway, the reason why I wanted the mic is because there's a book by Austin Kleon. It's called Steal Like an Artist. It's a fucking badass book. Anyway, so next.
Yeah, I think on that note, it's like steal like an artist, right? So what does it mean to steal like an artist? Making it your own and creating a context for that creation to be conceived in an original way. It's not always what the objects are. It's how the context at which they're being perceived and presented, and the experience that is created by those elements being combined. It's like an alchemist. It's like, okay, yeah, someone created that whiskey, but did they grow the grain? At what point are they the creator of that drink? And then now you're creating your own experience by putting it in this beautiful crystal bottle. You know, so it's like, it's this, at some point the ego breaks down. It's like, okay, why do we feel like one element deserves credit? And so I think there's going to be, I predict there's going to be some sort of crisis of the ego, because things are going to be created so easily and so freely that the concept of ownership around art, invention, design, all these things is going to come into question. It was weird because I have like this really deep distrust of the WEF and Klaus Schwab. And so like this whole like, you will eat bugs and you will like own nothing and be happy.
Yeah.
But now it's like this whole thing of like owning nothing and being happy is like, well, what is ownership? And when does one actually own something? And like, even if I bought a piece of land, do I really own it? And like the Native Americans are like, okay, yeah, you own that piece of land. Okay, crazy person over there thinking you own it. And but there's like access rights and privileges that come with quote unquote ownership. And so I feel like that's maybe the angle with art. Like, okay, what are the rights and privileges that come with creating a unique phrase that then inspires an AI generator to create content?
That was a question directed at you.
Yeah, that was definitely a direct question.
I think I figured it out.
Yes! Tell me more.
No, tell me what you think of this. So I think an artist is a person that is able to capture the perceived randomness of the world to then mimic something of the natural world, right? So we're utilizing the tools we have to create a reflection of nature, right? I mean, like we have. I think it applies to pretty much all kinds of art. I mean, music, like it's mimicking, sounds from like water, from instruments, from like, these natural, like, things we found in nature. And so I think I'm starting to not believe in randomness.
Yeah.
I think we're 2 against 2 here.
We talk you out of
randomness. No. You guys believe in randomness. I think I'm going more and more towards. I think there's structure.
Let me add to that.
To everything. We just don't understand everything.
Wait, no, I'm just kidding.
No, we can wait. So then now it's going to become a debate on random. So to bring it back to the topic of AI. So the randomness of AI is if you type in a phrase and it gives you images to select from, right? So say it gives you 4 images, 6 images, 9 images to select from. That has the appearance of randomness. So the AI is randomly giving you multiple selections. And just really quick, your style of painting, you take what's seen in the real world, but the way you use brushstrokes gives an artist. It looks very random. The loose brushstrokes. You can tell it's a person. You can tell it's a beach. You can tell it's a mountain. You can tell it's the water. You can tell what it is. But to a lot of people looking at it, it does look very random. And when you're in a state of flow, I bet you it feels somewhat random. No.
Dramatic pause. Well,
So at the end of the day, all we are is our brains. We can't step outside of our own brains. And everyone has inherent biases. And so I'm constantly thinking about what these biases are. And a huge one is finding pattern when there's not necessarily a pattern. And defining what that is or isn't is very difficult. So I don't know. I go back and forth on randomness.
How about AI and art? Being an artist. Inclusion.
I mean, I don't know at what point AI is going to be able to call... Is AI an artist when it can call itself an artist? It's a collaborative thing, as it is now.
Hey.
Gatekeeper.
I'm just... That's something I've never been called, so thank you. That's new. I'll add that to my resume.
Shane the Gatekeeper.
New nickname.
Mr. Microphone.
Mr. Mike.
GK.
So thoughts on AI, collaboration, and randomness. So I really enjoyed your parting thoughts on randomness and also your previous thoughts, and everyone's input really. But what caught me by surprise was the creating space for coherence, like your brushstrokes, right? There's this human effect. So in music, they tracked the missteps or mistakes in like a Steely Dan beat, like a really popular beat. And they're like, okay, we're going to create a technically perfect version with no misses. Then we're going to randomize the misses. And then we're going to play the original to see which version was most enjoyable to people. And they actually monitored the brain for dopamine response. And the least enjoyable was the technically perfect. Then slightly more enjoyable was the randomized one. Then by far the most enjoyable was the quote unquote random one. Now, what they found out, they're like, okay, is there a pattern? We like to seek patterns. They found a pattern, golden mean ratio. So between the misses, when the guy was in the pocket, right? Just like these misses that seem so random, like the growth of a flower. There's actually this underlying geometry that shows up as flawed or chaotic or whatever, but it's actually this divine pattern, possibly, showing up to the various influences and showing up in the best way it possibly can in that moment. And so though it's like this different confluence of influences, like I'm putting these words into AI, someone programmed it to search these databases and these artists and blah, blah, blah. And so to the smaller perspective of like, oh, I can only view this many things, it seems random, but with like to zoom out and look at all the influences and the confluences going into it, we might see that there is this deeper pattern. And so I'm holding space for discovering and exploring randomness more. But at this point, I love the idea of interacting with AI like a paintbrush, and there's this element I can't control, but it makes me exponentially more powerful and impactful, just like Photoshop did for you, and has become more and more powerful. So it's this exponential tool that I can't fully control, like any tool in the box, but it doesn't prevent me from being a collaborative artist. And so that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
To answer your question, I don't feel what I'm doing is random. I see your point, because it looks from the average, looking at something like I'm talking about a drip, right? And the more we kind of talk about this, the more I'm like realizing that we're actually just operating in a very specific system that is, there's no randomness at all. It actually everything is mimicking the golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence, right? I could throw paint in a canvas 1,000 times and it's never going to drip upwards, for example. I'm going back to the idea is, I think it's an artist is like the ability to capture a piece of the sequence, this golden rate, and art doesn't have to be, I was thinking like, okay, well, not all art is beautiful. Like, right. An artist can create something horrible and ugly, but if you don't want to talk about like good art, like maybe beautiful art is good art, that's art that's going closer to that ratio, because nature, right, like when we look at a human face, we perceive attractiveness by it being closest to that ratio. Mm-hmm. The closer it is to that ratio, the more we perceive it as beautiful. And, some artists try to create beautiful things and, probably just intuitively are tapping into that whatever this energy, that creator, maybe that created this sequence, this Fibonacci sequence.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
I think art is actually it's harnessing this thing we call randomness, and I think we're intrigued by it because we see that it's not actually all random, even though like we like to call things random. But that's the mystery about life, is we don't know everything, and so like it's kind of, it seems to maybe just be a junk drawer term, like to say like, oh, like it's just random. It's like, well, no, you just don't understand.
It's the word of the day.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write random.
Random, just random.
Tattoo
randomly.
Is that it?
So
Are
you want to wrap it up?
off?
Yeah, it's to be continued, right?
I mean, yeah, well.
Yeah, because once these things close down, I want to ask you some questions.
Oh, secret questions? Why not now?
Oh yeah, let's hear them. Let's hear them.
Well, okay then.
It's personal.
We're not gonna
All right.
gatekeep on this one.
Okay, all right.
Shane is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you might.
I thought that last round was our last round, but so anyway, I looked up random, and it says without conscious decision. So,
Consciousness.
without conscious decision. So okay, so then this brings me to when I'm not in a state of flow, and I'm trying to paint, and I'm very conscious, I make shitty art. To me, maybe other people like it, but I feel like when I'm hyper conscious, I make shit art.
Yeah.
But then when I drop into a state of flow and it's just fun and I'm playing and I'm not forcing it, I'm just doing it. That feels random.
It feels random, but is it?
I think so.
So there's this wild thing called the subconscious that I feel like Monika could tell us more about, because maybe there's this influence of the subconscious. It's like, okay, maybe you're letting go of the wheel consciously, but really there's another layer of consciousness that is contributing to the creation of that piece of art. And so there's like that phrase, like turtles all the way down. So I'm thinking of like consciousness in a fractal level. Like the consciousness that grows a plant or ferments a SCOBY. Like there's levels of consciousness. And at what point does it end? You know, like the morphogenetic fields of where do I end and where do I begin is an interesting question of like, okay, your consciousness making art, like there might be some psychic influence that makes you want to draw a candle or paint a candle. And then you're like, okay, consciously maybe trying to outline a candle, and then at some point, you're like, this is shitty, I just need to let go, and then the subconscious kicks in and creates the candle, et cetera, all the way down to like now.
The zero consciousness.
There's like this.
The dripping. Zero consciousness. I watch it.
That's a whole way. You put those drips in there. You know exactly what you're doing. You know exactly the direction they're gonna go.
No, I don't.
Are they gonna go up? Are they gonna drip up?
So
How many times do you have to do it before they drip upwards?
So you turn the canvas and you drip down.
So I think I like what we said. Let's bookmark this randomness conversation, because this is obviously a hot topic and very interesting.
This is more interesting than AI.
Actually, I had one more thing. I had one more thing to say about the AI and randomness, because like, you know, we've been assuming that AI is producing random results, right?
Right.
Not random at all, because there is absolutely a lot of things going on that we don't understand in the computer.
Yeah.
Creating these things. It's not random. These were coded.
So then if that's true, if AI is not random, what happens when you type in random into an AI art generator? You don't know. I don't know.
Well,
you know.
can it authentically generate randomness?
If you type in random,
It has a concept of randomness that was taught to it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But is that actually randomness?
but wouldn't that be interesting if Wouldn't it be interesting? I'm sorry. Okay, so
No, there's no sorry.
Why are you sorry?
We're happy.
because artist, builder, and a cook, a chef,
And a neuroscientist.
a chef. Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize.
And
No.
labels.
No, but I'm just no.
Gatekeeping. Who's the gatekeeper now?
No, I'm just trying to say, if you say random, so say neuroscience, random cook, random chef, random builder, random artist, random color. But if you think about it, if you were to just pick 10 people off the street and say, okay, we're going to make random art. Don't think about it. I don't want you to make anything specific. We're going to make random art. Right? And if you had these people, you say, okay, now that you've made this random piece of art, describe that random art to the AI, would the AI create something similar to what each individual created? That would be interesting.
I think there's a really interesting relationship between randomness and intuition, because if the randomness is without conscious decision, then is it feeling, and how does the subconscious play into that? And when you're in a state of flow, you're not necessarily making conscious decisions, you're kind of leaning more into intuition, which is feeling, but then there's still a lot of order and pattern in that, so it's not really random. And then once you get into that state of flow, it's easy to like continue on with the cycle, at least with food. That's kind of how creativity plays into that. I don't know.
I agree with that.
So, I feel like there's these and I really appreciated that. That's awesome. Like the way of flow and intuition ties into this thing that we call randomness, but I don't, maybe on an intuitive level, it doesn't feel random. So like for me, random, like the type of random you're speaking about, what I'm hearing, I could be absolutely off base, is like you put a bunch of names in a hat, all of our names in a hat, maybe a whole group of names, and I'm going to shuffle through them and I'm going to pick one. And bam, that's the random name. To me, I do that same action. I'm shuffling for a name, and boom, and I pick out a zebra. Like, that's random. Like, I couldn't have predicted that. Like, I can predict, like, if I can predict it, for me, and this is not Webster's dictionary, if I can predict that outcome with solid reason, it's not random.
So I'm glad you said that, because that's super interesting. I think, wouldn't it be fun to make artwork blindfolded? Because then it would be 100% random. Because
Is it?
yeah, if you
Because a blind person makes a painting, is that random?
yeah, I would say if you okay, so if you do take the definition of random, where you're basically making no conscious decisions, you're making the conscious decision to dip the paint or dip a brush into something. You don't know what color you don't know what color you're picking. Like,
What if
say,
it's not even paint?
okay, so what is there, like diarrhea and whiskey,
wine, who knows?
and then like some sort of like tomato sauce.
Mortar, concrete.
Well, okay. Well, let's take the idea. Okay, let's take the idea that like every color of spray paint is lined up. We're all blindfolded. There's a surface. We're all gonna just pick a can, spray, put the can down. Next person comes up, blindfolded, pick a can, spray. That seems very random to me, because the only conscious effort that you're making is picking a can and spraying. But the image is random. The image would be random.
Is it art?
But let's not define random yet. Let's
Pretty creative.
research.
It's pretty creative.
I still am for all of this conversation, and I love it.
It's getting better as we go.
It really is. I'm like trying to hit the brakes, and it's just like it's gearing up.
We're gonna be deep in the woods.
Yeah. So, okay.
I'm sorry, dude.
No, I'm just in awe, because I am very, very excited about this. Because what is randomness? Is it a bunch of people spraying different cans of paint on? Is it art? So what I'm hearing is like there's consciousness in art. So would that be art?
Yeah, is he an artist then? That's the same question.
So is someone, yeah.
Is
So
a blind person an artist?
absolutely. Sorry.
Yeah.
Blind people, what's up? Love you.
Right.
That.
You just pointed at me because I'm wearing glasses. What a prick.
Hey, I'm wearing contacts.
Because I have progressives on.
No, I still kind of disagree, because it's the energy of intention and creation is still there, if you're blind or not, right? He's like, his brain, is still firing to do, and he's consciously creating a thing. It's like, I was thinking, like, you call yourself a builder.
Yeah.
Are you not an artist? Yeah, I mean that's you're taking tools and you're creating, right? I mean,
Builder is the label of the materials.
yeah. So the person typing the command is a kind of artist. Like you could classify artists. You can say you're this kind of artist. You're the builder artist. Like you're the food artist. Like we're the visual artist. Like there's musical. Like all those, and it's the same creative energy behind it. It's the consciousness. It's the direction. It's the intention behind it. And so I think a computer, an AI, is only going to be an artist when it's able to create its own AI art itself with its own consciousness, with which hopefully we don't get to that point. We might.
Well,
maybe we're there already.
Yeah, maybe we're there already. And this whole fear porn around AI is interesting. It's like, is that helpful? Is it helpful to be afraid of advanced intelligence assisting us to accomplish tasks? And I was thinking about this earlier today because there's like this whole Freudian push of like, if you study Edward Bernays and the whole mass psychology and the fear of the subconscious and the drives, and so it's almost like there's this. When I think about intelligence, I go, okay, does someone become more or less violent the more intelligent they become? My observation is the most intelligent people I know, personally, are very peaceful people. And so a system that's like reading Plotinus and medical documents and all these things and is very intelligent, it doesn't seem like violence. It's like this weird thing like, oh yeah, it's going to be super intelligent and violent. And I think that's our own weird inherent Freudian drive for destruction and control, but it isn't necessarily the drive of a greater, deeper intelligence system.
I have a word about violence. So as
A word about violence.
So a word about violence. So I'm not a violent person. And I don't know if you would classify me as smart or not, but
I said intelligent, not smart.
okay, intelligent. So the way I see violence is my grandmother carried a pistol in her purse because she was violent, or because if somebody who was violent came into the picture, that she was willing to meet violence with violence. So for me, violence is having the capacity to meet violence with violence to protect people. Like if somebody breaks into my house at night and my wife and my daughter are there, I become very violent, fast. But it doesn't have anything to do with intellect. It has to do with, are you willing to protect what's important? That's the importance of violence.
Yeah, then that goes back to Plato, right? So like the greater good. So it's like the good of protecting your family is for you worth risking danger or harm. And the good of protecting your family is more important than the safety of the person violating your space. This is what I'm hearing, and is a philosophically, aligns with Platonic ideals, right. Like defending the beautiful, the true, and the good.
Yeah.
Anyone? You got a word on it?
What was your?
How did we get on this topic?
No, I was gonna say I think you kind of we're going off on violence, but I think your point was a machine who is intelligent. If it becomes self-aware, we found that intelligence leads to more peace and non-violence. And so the person breaking into your house to hurt you and your family, they're possibly less intelligent because they're not really thinking things through very, very good. Or they're desperate. And your response, I don't think, we'll have to look at the definition of violence, but I think maybe this is for another podcast,
yeah,
but your response is not necessarily violence, but it's self-preservation. It's preservation of the things you love and yourself and your property and your family. So like it almost seems like violence is like a outside of that. I mean, I don't know if there's another word, like you have to like your intention is not to do harm to the person, but just to stop the person, right? I mean,
No.
If you were, well, okay, I
If you're
mean,
in the house at night.
but ideally, in a perfect world, I understand it doesn't have like someone's not gonna come in with a gun and you're not gonna be like, please don't, and they'll be like, oh,
You're talking about
you're right, okay,
where you just
yeah, but
No.
okay, so maybe
Anyway.
maybe you are a violent person then.
No, I'm not. I really am not. But what you said about AI being, like, some people think it's very dangerous and insidious, and in some ways, they're right, because AI being AI being designed to create artwork. Okay, that's cool. It's fun. It's interesting. But what about the AI where now you have to check yourself out at the grocery store? At every store you go to, you have to check yourself out. And now you're doing the job that somebody who used to have a job was checking you out, and now they're not. And it's AI that does that. It's the development of this machinery that edges humans out. So is AI art going to edge out the artist? Well, I don't care, because I'll make art for me. But I think that's the danger is, is there going to be an AI machine that becomes a chef that like puts you out of work, or is AI going to become some sort of building, like huge 3D printer that puts you out of work? Or is AI going to be 100%, all art is made by AI, and then people don't give a shit about us anymore? That's where people get uncomfortable.
All right, this gets me very excited, because this is actually what I'd love to have a future conversation about, is like not just focus on AI, but what is innately human. So there's this whole, broken window fallacy about, oh, I create jobs by breaking windows, or like, the fallacy of like, oh, well, I'm going to just throw trash on the ground to create jobs. Well, that energy could be expended in more conscious and efficient and higher purposes. So like someone working at McDonald's, that if they're doing it for their own high reasons of social interaction, camaraderie, all the right reasons, power to them, and they'll do it whether they, it makes sense or not, like you with your art. But if all of a sudden it's like, well, maybe building and doing masonry isn't, like putting up rock walls, etc., isn't my highest calling. AI might allow me to actually achieve even greater heights of like actually taking the time, tuning into my highest purpose, and empowering me with that. So when you said it makes certain people more dangerous, that's true. It feels like lots of money.
Or that it
pushes
humans out.
Well, I won't jump on that bandwagon, but I feel like it makes people more powerful. And so just like someone who's an a-hole that gets a lot of money, they become a bigger, jerk, right? Or they can.
Yeah.
And then sometimes life humbles them and they learn their lessons. But and someone that has a ton of money that's generous and wants to teach people about consciousness. One of my teachers is like that. She doesn't need to work. So she's actually built a whole retreat center and wants to teach consciousness and share all this. And so this happens to be just an empowerment tool. So like it might empower people to be bigger jerks or bigger beneficiaries to society. And I feel like Monika has something to say. She's giving me that look.
She's listening intently.
I think a lot of the fear of AI is just about otherness, the separation between what is human and what is artificial intelligence, and not being able to predict what will happen if and when AI becomes sentient. But I think there is not ever going to be a reality where AI completely pushes humans out of space as far as art goes and food goes. Humans...
You've never seen The Matrix?
Humans are obsessed with themselves, and so I think humans are just going to be drawn to the shit that other humans are doing, no matter what.
Beautiful. Oh, yeah.
You're talking, like I think AI is not inherently evil, but it's a powerful tool, and with great power comes great responsibility.
Mic drop.
Truer words have never been spoken.
We have that on film.
I didn't want to actually drop your mic, but
No, that's okay.
should I drop it?
You could do a mic drop.
All right. With great power comes great responsibility. Oh shit. Is it? Are we?
That was good, yeah.
So that 10-minute podcast turned into an hour.
Oh, cool. It could have gone a lot longer.